So hello everyone, welcome to the Global BizApps Weekend 2021, powered by D365 Champs. It's day two today, and it's the final session that we are doing it from yesterday. And we hope you are doing well and keeping safe. I am Venkat Subbarao Pole City, moderating this session along with Sagar Rupani. This session is presented by Ratnesh Kumar Pandey. Ratnesh will be talking about Power Portal's liquid coding, encryption, and security. Just a brief introduction about Ratnesh. He's an SSC at Visa, is an ex-Microsoft, and he's an MCT and MCP, and with 4 times a Forex certificate, and he's an CRM solution architect and .NET developer with 8+ years of experience and works on Power Platform and Dynamics 365. So before I hand over the session to Ratnesh, I would like to mention that if you have any queries, please feel free drop it in the chat window. We will take them either during the session, if possible, or during the Q&A time. Thank you again for joining and enjoy the session. Ratnesh, over to you.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen and someone can just let me know once you'll be able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining the session. Today I'm going to cover Power Portal liquid coding, encryption, and security. Before I start the session, I would like to understand how many of you are already working in Power Portal, has any previous past experience in Power Portals. Can I get a hands up on that quickly? Just wanted to understand my audience. Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you. So almost 10 folks. All right. So that's fine. So I'll not go in very deep so that I don't want to, utilize your time somewhere which is not relevant. So I'll first explain basically. So let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Ratnesh. I'm ex-Microsoft FTE. I'm Power Portals SME in Microsoft. I'm accessibility expert. Dynamics product accessibility was developed by my team in Microsoft. I'm cybersecurity expert as well, community enthusiast. I'm MCT in Dynamics as well as I'm a solution architect. My handles are already available here, and I love to do gymming and boxing. That's my part-time hobby. Not spending much time on this. Let me go to the next slide. So today's agenda would be, I'll give you a brief overview on Power Portals, how it works, what it is, why we need, and then we'll jump into liquid coding, which is very essential part of Power Portals in order to make a better UI designs and interacting with users. Then how we'll try how we can secure the portals by using portal security. And then we'll talk about how we extend the security by performing encryptions and what all encryptions are already available in Dynamics portals, as well as what all extra bits what we can do in order to make it more secure. Okay, so first is what is Power Portals? So Power Portals is basically a tool which we can which we can leverage to interact with our end users. Either you are following B2B or B2C model. In both the models, in order to make your business available 24/7 with low cost. It's the very best platform to enable a Power Portal, and then your end users can interact with you 24/7 and leverage it in their business practices. It's a low code platform as well. It has template based structure where you can just write a couple of lines, drag and drop, and then your portal will be ready with a very interactive design. You can you can have federation. You can federate it with any type of federation except employee self-service portal. So employee self-service portal only supports Azure authentication. Except that, all rest of the portal modules are linked with all type of portal authentication. You can even federated by using LinkedIn. You can use it Facebook or any external provider or any custom provider, whatever your organization is using. You can use it to grant different access on top of your organization, right? Yes, it follow in the backend. It follows CDS. So whatever data interaction happens on top of this platform goes through CDS, and data lie upon your Dynamics environment itself. You're not going to utilize any external databases required. If you want, I'll explain you how we can utilize external database as well to interact with your Power Portals. It's a low code platform. That means, yeah, most of the things are drag and drop, as well as if you want, Microsoft is already providing multiple templates, which whatever is suits your business more, you can use it, like customer self-service for cases and incidents. For event management, you can use event management. If you have a community portal where you want to do most of a blogging and you want to interact with your community, you can have a community portal. And if you want completely custom something which is not available as a base template, you can always opt for custom portal, which is a completely blank and scratch portal where you can start building your website or portal from scratch. That's the basic design. Now, if I talk before we go on how to develop and work on portals, we need to understand the high level architecture of that. So if I point here, so here is your end users available, and as soon as they hit your root URL of your portals, it will go to our traffic manager and traffic manager. So in the background, as soon as you provision your portal, it will create web apps on server side. It automatically happens, done by the Microsoft where it is hosted. Usually for each portal, two web apps automatically get created. One is your main web app and the second one is your failover web app, which is usually for the disaster management. If your one app is down, the other one can be, can be up immediately to serve your customers. To sync the data between both the web apps, we have Azure Service Bus. We can leverage that, and then we have Dynamics, which is basically work as a backend where we store all the access related things, all the data and everything. All the interactions between web app, if you are doing any data transactions, it should go through Dynamics. So it will come to Dynamics, and then it will again go to CDS, and then go to your DB. Always it hosted in same region for the performance as well as security. When I'll talk about the security, I'll extend this why it is hosted on the same region and what is the need of that. Now, if you'll see here, service Azure Service Bus is going to interact with your web app all the time in order to sync the data, but it has a cycle. So cycle is 2 to 15 minutes. So if you are doing any changes directly into Dynamics database, it may take up to 15 minutes to reflect that change into your portals. Otherwise, you have to do a explicit cache clearing. Otherwise, it can take up to 15 minutes. That's the highest threshold for that. Now, let me talk about a little bit on Liquid. So Liquid is basically a server-side scripting language, which it's an open source template language created in Ruby. It usually used to load dynamic data in your portals, and it always render on the server side. So let's say if you want to you add some dynamic component which is retrieved from your Dynamics environment, you have to render it from the server side. You cannot call directly from the client side. If you want the data on the client side on user interaction, in that case, even you have to request your server to process that page first, and then it will give you the data. How we can do that, I will discuss it in later. In order to start working with Liquid, two things we have to understand clearly. One is what is object and what is tags. So objects are basically what we use to show the data on the client side. Likewise, in usually in our other technologies in .NET, we use console.writeline or whatever echo or whatever the other terminologies printf we use. Similarly, for Liquid, we have this two angular brackets. Whatever we add in between those two angular brackets, it will going to print that data on the client side. Now, for tags are basically for control flow or any logical operation. Like if you are doing any if else conditions, switch conditions, or looping or anything, whatever logical things what you do, you always use this tag. Tag is basically identified by angular bracket, percentile angular bracket, and whatever right in between that, it will going to be considered as a conditional language. Now let's talk about how Power Portals is going to organize in the backend. And whenever we start working on it, whenever we start exposing our website to our client side, how we configure it in the backend. We'll talk about this web role when we talk about security model. Let's first focus on this region only. So here, whenever we browse any portal, it will only expose our web pages. Web pages may include direct entity list, entity forms. In order to show entity list and entity form, we are again dependent upon page templates. It could be out of the box page templates. Power Portal itself give a lot of different type of page templates like full page, child page, blank page. We can use those. If we want to customize it, we can also create our own web templates. That's fine. And inside web template, we can have either entity list, entity form, content snippets, web link sets, web files to show like CSS or any HTML files we can include in web templates to render the component more interactive way. This is how it is structured basically. Uh, so let's talk about web templates first. So web templates we usually use web templates to extend the feature of our portals. Like if we want to show some extra data within that page, if we want to add more HTML components, definitely we need to make it more interactive. Yeah, apart from making it interactive, you want to load some dynamic data as well, and you want to make it make it more user friendly. You can use web templates, you can use custom web templates basically. In the custom web templates, we can, as you can see, there's a small snippet where we can see that it has all the div elements, including a few liquid template coding, which we usually use. I'll show you later in how we can utilize them, how we can leverage it. So basically, we can use either entity list, entity page, web pages, all these things inside a web template to extend its functionality. Otherwise, Microsoft always provide a basic template which you can even customize it from the client side if you have a proper roles assigned. In out of the box way, Power Portals automatically provide some objects. Those objects are like entities. Now is for date. Entity means as soon as you use this keyword and provide any GUID, it will retrieve that particular record from Dynamics automatically and show you that data. So you can retrieve that data, capture in a variable, and then utilize in your logic. Now is basically a date time page. I'm going to use this a lot when I'll do the actual demo. So page is basically the current page which is loading. It will this object will contain entire information about that page, be it the title of the page, what all component that page has, what is the language that page support. Everything will be part of this particular page parameter. We're going to use content snippets. Snippets are basically small chunk of code which we include dynamically into our page template. And the specialty of snippets, it's language based. So let's say your portal is multilingual and more than one languages you want to show based on regions. So in that case, you cannot just keep on checking the language and then replacing the data. So snippet, as soon as you define one language in your snippet, as soon as that page will load in different language, it will automatically understand that this page is I have to load in this language, and it will automatically render that type of content in that particular language. So snippets we are going to use. User object is very key object. We also always use the current logged in user details will be available in this. And when we say logged in user, it's a contact. So whatever contact is being used by that particular user, whatever details is added in that, everything will be available in user object. So if user is logged in, this particular thing will contain contact information. If not, then this will go as null. So we're going to use this object as well. So yeah, and now web link sets are basically the navigation bar what we get. It contains what all links we have to show in the navigation bar, and what all pages will load when we'll click on those buttons. And then website is the basic website, the main website details. Like in Dynamics, I'll show you what all details will be available. So website is basically it's another entity which basically the root entity of our portals, and it will going to contain all the data of that. Now let's have a quick demo on liquid templates. All right. So this is my simple, I have hosted one simple Power Portal, and here let me just sign out and try to sign in again. As you can see, when I'm trying to log in into this, before login, if I'm trying to browse this page, it's giving me please log in first. So I'm using a template for this. It's a custom template. Let me open that template first. This is a custom template I'm using. First, let me talk about this ID. So this is recently Microsoft has launched it because we don't have any, we used to not to have any ID available where we can do the development in much managed way. But now Microsoft has provided this particular ID where we can develop our code, do this, save and synchronize it with the server immediately. Otherwise we were dependent upon service underscore about page. That I'll show you what's that page is. So here if you'll see, I'm just doing a small conditioning where I'm checking if user and else this. So if user is null, that means user is not logged in, then show this text, otherwise show me this list. So this is what, if user is logged in, show me the name of the user as well. So what I'm doing, I'm retrieving one text from the contact entity. So as you know, in contact entity, we have full name field available, first name, last name, email address. So we can use the logical name of those fields, and we just have to add dot and then give the logical name, and that particular data will be available. So let's say you are retrieving some data at the time of login from external federator, or doing anything like whosoever is going to authenticate the user is passing some data at the time of authentication. Usually we use claim parameters in order to get that data, and that claim parameter directly goes and save into your contacts. Now, in order to retrieve that, what data dynamically comes from your federator, you always depend upon this user variable. That's the main use of this user variable, where you will just get the dynamic parameter available as soon as you get the user is federated. Otherwise, it will be blank and you won't be able to see any data. So that's the key concept about that. I have seen that people are using this user variable to check that user is logged in or not, and then if not, then redirect it to some other page or page level restrictions. That's not a good practice. I'll talk about that when I'll talk about the security model again. So as you can see, as soon as I log in this portal, let me just quickly log in. So as you can see here, it's showing two different entity lists. How to include more than one entity list. So here, if you'll see, this is the out of the box way. We can just directly see, go into the page, current page, check for this property, and then get me the ID. This is how we are passing, and we are checking that what is the name of that page which is currently rendering. So if I'll open this page in Dynamics, let me quickly open this page. So entire information about this page, whatever fields like name, website, parent page, all this information is available in this object. It's a collection basically. And inside this, if I'll see this entity list, ADX underscore entity list, that's the property here, list property. And this property is going to give me that detail about this entity list. And then I'm just pasting the ID. And this ID will going to render this particular entity list on my client side. If I don't have the ID and I want to include more than one entity list in the page, in that case, I can directly include it by using the name of the entity list as well. So I can directly go into the entity list section, and I can just copy any entity list name, and as soon as I provide the name, it will going to add. So you don't have any limits like how many entity lists you want to include in the page. You can add it as many as you want. But again, the good practice is not to use more entity lists. I have seen in past very big major customers in the Microsoft Dynamics platform, they are again using so many entity lists on a single page. I've seen some big companies who are using multiple tabs here, small tabs, and inside that they are loading multiple entity lists. That will bring down the performance of your website dramatically. So you don't, I won't recommend to use that. Better you design pagination or something which to switch between the pages so that it won't load everything in one go. Otherwise, it will be a major problem. But again, there is no limit. If it is very urgent, you can always use this way. Now this is out of the box entity list. How about if we have to make some changes, like maybe merging two columns or maybe changing the information or anything, any of this text with something else, or merging or maybe doing some conditioning on top of it. So in order to do that, I have created another list, which is formatting list. And if I open this, as you can see, now all the origins, like it's an email, it's web, or it's coming from Twitter, or from where it's coming, or it's coming from web, where it's coming, I am just replacing it with an image. Or if I want to change this to show the status in a different iconic format, like if it is in progress, show me this image. If it is already solved, show me this image. If it is not solved, it's on hold, show me this image. So that it's more user friendly and it's more prompting to the users. So in order to do this, we can just directly do it easily by using by extending the entity list itself rather than writing our own custom table. Let me show you how we can do that. So here it's same page till now. Here it's exactly same what we have seen in the out of the box list. Now we are extending entity list properties, and we are going to see one by one how we can leverage this. So here I'm just checking, get me the page, get me the entity list name, ID, and then I will going to render this. As soon as I write this, entire entity list data will going to add into a collection, and this collection is our entity list collection. Inside that, I'm just doing a small if, and I'm checking if do we have more than one views attached to that entity list or not. So far, if I'll go to this entity list, I can see that I have more than one views here. I have two views. So that means this count is more than one. Then let me just create a node for views. So this particular list is created by that particular logic, small logic, where I'm just checking the list count, and then I'm rendering it. And this will just create the text, and then it's a anchor tag I'm using. So everything, whatever render in the portal side, it's all, most of them is based on the query parameters, and it's mostly anchor tags. So this is one of the anchor tags, and where we are passing the path, and this path will contain the view ID. So as soon as I select different view, you will see that new view ID is automatically appended. Can you see that? Now this view ID will going to retrieve new data for me, and then it will show that. Again, this data is not going to be real time always. Again, sync cycle will applicable. So if you have already searched that view will going to cache on the server side. So it may take a while to show the real time data. Again, coming back here, so I'm just rendering this view. I'm just checking, and then I'm just doing a small loop on the entity list object view property and retrieving each view, and then that's it. I'm just adding the name of the view, ID of the view, and just query parameter of the view. That's it. It's very simple. Now again, what I'm checking here, if search is enabled. So in the entity list, if you go here, you will see that one property, search, enable search. The property name is enable search. Okay. So here I'm just checking that property search is enabled. If yes, then go ahead and create a search box. Search box is again very simple. It has a query parameter. It's an anchor tag, has a query parameter, and it has a text, and that's it. So that's it. And then I'm checking if create is enabled. That means we have a button which will going to create a record. Yes, if it is, then go ahead and create a anchor tag with a create label, and then it will render like a button only. Again, we use pipe filters a lot here. The pipe filters is basically in order to filter the data, what type of data we are getting. Let's say I'm getting a data which I want to render it as a string format. So I can just say string. So this will going to convert this data into string format. We have more and more different type of filters which we can use to convert the data. Usually when we interact with with JSON parameters, we get a lot of noise in the JSON parameter. In order to sort out that before passing it to between pages, we always use these filters, because Liquid usually fails when there is a lot of noise in the data. Now till the time only we have built this header piece. Now in the bottom section, what we can do, we can easily render this data to create the grid. So in order to create the grid, first we have to, what we are doing here, we are just checking the current view, whatever is selected out of these two, whatever view is selected. Currently we are selecting all cases. Then what it will do, it will going to retrieve that particular view ID, then get the order of that view ID, and what is the sorting expression of that ID, and then I'm just going to create a table. It's nothing so fancy. It's just creating a normal bootstrap table in the background as well. Even if you're not doing it, Dynamics portal out of the box entity is going to create a Dynamics bootstrap table itself. So here, if you'll see, first it will, I'm just looping the entity view columns, and the columns will going to get the different names and all these column names and the different properties what we have, what is the ascending order, descending order. So here, if you'll see, I'm using a switch case where I'm just checking if when it is EAC, then load this. So here is the case property. So we have like different properties available in Liquid, switch cases, if else, and everything for each loops and all this. So here I'm just using a simple switch case where I'm checking if ascending order, show me this. If it is descending order, show me this. Otherwise, show me this. I can have a conditioning, different conditionings to show hide columns, merge columns. So like this one, what I'm doing here, if it's not equals to status reason, then do something. Otherwise, otherwise don't do anything. So status reason column will not appear if this code will run. That's like, so here I'm just creating the header tag, and then in bottom I'm going to render the data again, rendering each column, and then inside each column I'm going to pull the column value, and then I'm just going to different pick lists. Like we have different attributes of the values as well, and it's a pick list type, it's a date type parameter. So we have filters to standardize the date format as well. So here, like I'm just doing ISO 8601 standardization of date of this attribute, and I'm creating a timer type of control. That's very straightforward. Here I'm including a snippet in order to show different images here. So like for status, I'm showing these images. For origin, I'm showing these images. So we can leverage this snippets as well. So like I'll show you quickly the snippet of status. So here, if you'll see, it's a HTML type of small piece of code where I'm just doing a simple conditioning where I'm just checking if label is equals to in progress, show me this image. If state is equal to problem solved, show me this image. If it is on hold, show me this. Otherwise, default, show me this image. And I'm adding some text in the end so that it will be more prominent that, okay, this image means in on hold, or this image means in progress. So this is exactly how it is rendering now. It's very straightforward, simple, and just include here, and that particular node will going to be rendered with this particular snippet. And this is all dynamic rendering on the server side. In the end, we are having sorting and then pagination. So in the bottom, if you'll see, we have this pagination available. So for pagination, we are just checking what is the first page, what is the last page, and how many slices we are doing, and then that's it. Based on this is all coming on your entity view itself. So whatever page size we'll select here, like current page size 10, so it will going to render as 10 page size only. Again, and then it will going to render, not going to spend a lot of time in here. If you want to use other type of tables, we have datatable.js, or you can use any other type of tables in order to render the data. You can see we can do grouping as well. Here, as you can see, I have grouping between the between different statuses, case types. Requests are grouped here, questions are grouped here. So what I'm doing here, I'm just using external library datatable.js, which will going to retrieve the data. So data is coming in a JSON format. If I'll show you here quickly. So if I load this page again, you'll see that it's calling another page. Here it is, and it's giving me all the data here, and I'm just using the data tools to render these pages. Okay, we don't have a lot of time. Let me move quickly to another topic. So basically, if you get the point, right? I mean, it's quite simple. We are just loading this data in the datatable.js. I'll quickly show you the code. So this is the fetch.xml query. If you'll see, I'm just using the date property. Now, why I'm using date property here? Every time the query should be unique in order to make it synchronous. That's a hack. There is no other way. A server will always cache. In order to make query unique, always you can use date parameter, which I guess everyone is using nowadays. Otherwise, if you will make the same query again and again, it will not going to ask CDS to retrieve the latest data. It will going to check in the cache. If it is already rendered the same query in past 15 minutes, it will going to give you the same result. So if we'll add date parameter, this will again, every time when you run the query, the query will filter condition will change and it will going to give you real-time values. So that's the basic comparison. So if I'm going to make any modification in the data, if I'm going to render the out of the box list, it will always going to give me the old data. But if I'm going to render fetch based list now, it will going to give me the latest data. Here I'm just generating the JSON body. By rendering the results, I'm getting all the entities and I'm checking the entity list. And I'm just doing the generating the JSON body. It has different parameters, and then that's it. I'm just utilizing this body. So here, if you'll see, this is a basic. I'm using datatable.js library, and then I'm just creating a normal table headers. Inside that, in the script, I'm just calling I'm doing an Ajax call. And in this Ajax call, if you'll see, I'm just calling the same page which I just showed you. This page is basically doing nothing but just to retrieve the data in a JSON format, and we can pass different queries as part of the query parameter in order to change the values. Like if you want to get the specific IDs or current user, some other user, whatever you want to make any dynamic filter conditions, you can just pass that attributes as a query and include it in your fetch XML conditions. And then I'm just rendering this particular thing into this datatable.js. It's a very simple mechanism where I'm just pushing the entire data, I'm capturing it in an object and passing it in an object. This is the table property, which basically coming from the library itself. And inside that, I'm just passing the data. I'm passing the grouping mechanism. Search is enabled. What would the order of that, and then how the data will going to process. So if here as well, as you can see, for this status field, I'm just going to add a conditioning, and I can do whatever I want. I mean, I can add an image, I can add some custom text for different conditions values, and then it will easily be rendering accordingly. And that's it. This is the basic structure of that. Let me move to the next topic quickly. Okay, portal securities, basically authentication authorization is required for any website to render. Content security is important, and in order to do code operation, we have to limit the user access of a user, and we have to do the record level security as well, like which record should be accessible to whom, and it should be configurable. So all the properties are followed by our Power Portals. If you'll see how the Power Portals instance is configured, this is the basic design which will going to demonstrate that. So this is our security model. Everything in portal is basically a user. As soon as someone logs in, as soon as you provision the portal, basically what usually happens in the backend, your current system user is hashed into the background with the as a person who is responsible for all the transaction in your CDS. So that means CDS does not understand that contact is again a user. So that means all the transaction is going to done by the system user, because that is responsible for all the retrieve and all the code operations. Now here, if you'll see, on top of the contact, so contact is going to relate with any web role, and web role going to relate with entity permissions and web page access control rules. How it will usually happens, first we'll check what page should be accessible to this contact. This will going to be controlled by web role, and what entity will be visible on that particular, like we have just seen that case entity is accessible to this web role for that particular contact which is logged in. So this will completely provide by the entity permissions, and that will going to again link with the web pages. So as soon as any user try to access a web page, it will check what all entity list, entity forms, views, or whatever entities are going to be part of that web page. First, it will go and check that do I have permission on that particular entity? If yes, and that page is also accessible by using web page access control rules? If yes, then only that data will render, and all these three things will be going to merge into web roles. So we can have persona based web roles. Different personas can have different level of access, and you can directly show that data in the end. Basically, if we talk about web role here, it's basically used to grant different level of access to each user. And we can like basically whenever you try to configure web role, we have two options available, one for authenticated users and one for anonymous. As soon as you say mark any web role as this is for authenticated users, as soon as user log in, this will be added as a default role. You won't be able to see this role in the contact directly, but it website will consider that this role is for authenticated users by default. So I mean, only one role can be a default for anonymous users, and only one role can be default for authenticated users. How we control that? Uh, because as soon as you add checkbox, check this is yes, that means this role will going to be added in the background, stamped as a authenticated user web role, and this will going to be on unauthenticated web role. That's it. uh, Going forward, and the last web role which you usually get is administrator web role, which is usually utilized by the developers who are going to work on that portal. Now let's talk about entity permissions. So in entity permission, we have two layers again. One is scope and the other is permission. So scope is basically global, means you can consider it as an organization level in Dynamics. So when we want to give all whatever data is available in that entity we want to give access to, we'll use global level access. If it is a contact base, that means the current logged in user contact should be associated with that particular data by using contact lookup. There should be a relation between the contact. If it is an account, that means the account which is available in that contact should have some association with the data on that entity, maybe by a lookup or something. Parent child, it's usually utilized for n level hierarchy. Let's say we have a chain of entities where we want to show uh, more than one layer up. We have child, or maybe more than one child we have, where the data is not accessible directly by the contact. In that case, we can just create a hierarchy of data by using parent-child relationship, and then we can just retrieve that data. Self is basically for current contact. Let's say I'm logged in as my contact Ratnesh. In that case, I want to control that as well, like what all fields should be visible, what level of access that particular user should have on the contact. Do I need to request my user to interact with the contact to change his name, or change the different values, like do you want to subscribe for something, or you want to uh, opt out for something? In that case, you can give the level of access on top of contact as well. Otherwise, by default, user will have full access on their contact at least. Now, permissions is basically read, write, create, delete, append to, and this is completely based on what level of access, what type of action that user can perform on top of that entity record. So that's how we control that. Now, website access permissions are basically allow users to, manage what level of access that particular user have on top of entire website. Like usually we use this type of permissions for article writers. Let's say we have a content manager. Content manager can directly log in into portals and do the changes from portal side, directly write a blog or write something, and directly can interact with the front end of the site. Otherwise, uh, one can do it from the back end as well, but this is basically for those. Web page access control rules are basically for restricting the users for accessing what they don't supposed to, or granting extra privileges to someone who, like for specific roles, we want to show some specific pages. Like for salesperson, we want to show only case create pages, but for sales manager, I want to show list of cases as well. So I can create two different pages based on their personas. I can just grant access to both the pages, and then they will get the access. Or let's say for anonymous users, I want to hide all the links except login sign in button, and for logged in users, I want to show entire navigation bar. So I'll just going to create a access control rule, and that will going to easily handle that scenario. Usually people don't utilize this and they write custom code. they use user object to control these scenarios, which is really not a good best practice. The reason is we have a tool called Burpsuit. Burpsuit usually we use to track the page content, and we can just gather all the information which is available on the page in order to, whenever somebody tries to hack your website, they always try to gather whatever information is possible. 70% is requirement gathering in case of cybersecurity. If you are using if else conditions like this, especially for the authentication, it's not going to be end up well. It will going to definitely the hacker will be able to pull out all the information whatever you have, can be able to breach, and it's not good at all. So usually we have to control it from the server side, and the only way to do that is using web page access control tools to restrict the pages. Basically, I'll show you in the demo. Okay, we have only a couple of minutes only. Let me quickly show you. So basically, if we'll come here, so table permissions basically here, and if you'll see, I'll just take example of this one here. So I have currently created one table permission for incident entity, and where I'm just providing global level access. So if I'll retrieve data on this list, let's say custom list. So here, if you'll see, I'm getting 44 data results in the response. So if I'll see how many cases do we have, let me remove the filter. So total 44 cases we have, and I'm able to access all 44 cases. Let's say I want to restrict it to contact level, where I'm associated as a contact, which is related to me directly, which is, I mean, if I'll talk about this is like user level privileges in case of Dynamics. So this is whatever that user owns. I want to show only that data. So quickly, if I'll do this, clear the cache. So 1 second, it will take some time. As you can see, only 4 records are associated with me. So if I'll quickly add a filter here, you will see that only 4 records are where I'm associated as a contact for that particular URL. Similarly, it will work for account as well. If you just define the relationship between account, the contact account, and the data, the entity you are trying to access, there you also supposed to have a account lookup and how they are related. Just create that relation and you can do that. Similarly, you have parent child, where you will just define another level of security which you have already created, and then you will create the relation between both the security roles, so that it will go one level deep again. And we usually use for n level security, a hierarchy security model. Otherwise, it's quite straightforward. Let me quickly go to next slides. Please unmute yourself and let me know if you have any questions on this. Okay. So encryptions, this is extending the security model. Now we have the data, but how we can extend it to make it more secure, because that getting the data is not the only benchmark nowadays, because one can easily tap your data from the middle, can retrieve data from the middle. We recently seen in July that a lot of data is being exposed to end users directly, can be tapped easily even if you are using the security model. So how we can do that? We can just encrypt our data. Encryptions are three types basically. One is data at rest, data in use, and data in motion. Usually for data at rest, that means data is either on the client side or on the server side. Usually we see it as a server side. And since I've already mentioned, Dynamics is using, PowerPort is using Dynamics as a backend database model. So that means it's utilizing exact same encryption logic what Dynamics uses, which is TBD encryption, which is cell-based encryption. If you want to modify that, you can directly add your own key and then modify it on the encryption model. Otherwise, it will use the default encryption model itself. We don't have any other mechanism except while entering the data, you try to change the encryption model of that particular data. Like you first encrypt the data, then push it into the DB. Otherwise, this is the only model which currently Dynamics follows. Data in motion means while data is in while data you are retrieving or you are saving or when moving between one server to another, it's data in motion encryption we can do. Currently, Dynamics and PowerPortal both use TLS 1.2 SSL level transport layer level basically encryption. This particular encryption is good enough, but it's not the best. A man in the middle attack is easily possible in this. Not that easy, but yeah, it is possible. And if you are dealing with a very sensitive data, like if you are working for a government client or a banking industry, you cannot rely upon TLS always, and you have to while moving your data between one server to another, you have to keep it in encrypted format if it's interacting outside your corporate network. So we'll talk about this how we can do that in portals. First, we understand what type of encryptions we have. We have symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryptions. Symmetric encryption is basically we'll have only one key, and that key will be shared between both the parties. That means the person who is going to receive the encrypted data and the person who is sending the data. So both the keys will be same, and there is a sync between both the parties that hey, I'm going to encrypt with this key. You will use the same key to decrypt that. This is the most secured way to do the encryption. A stays and snow. This is the basic algorithms we use for encrypting this. We cannot use this on the client side. That's the that's why it is actually more secured, because it's all happens on the server side. And the major problem in Dynamics portals is we don't have access to the servers, so we cannot perform this activity directly. But we have some designs available for that as well. I'll explain you quickly. Now, the other type is asymmetric encryption. Basically, we'll have for doing the encryption, we have one key, but in order to decrypt that, we have multiple keys. So, and each recipient who is going to receive that have its own type of key. That is, we usually say as a private key, and the public key is usually used for decrypting that. If you must have seen like OpenID Connect, we get the JWT token available. So JWT token is basically uses RAS kind of encryption, and that's again, you can see that you can directly capture that token from your federator and just paste it into jwt.io, and you can see that it's decrypting directly without asking for any other extra key, because it's publicly enabled, and JWT knows what key they are using to decrypt. But this is one of the model. Again, this can be done from the client side, and usually we use like paper libraries is available, which usually people use to do that. They are best in the market. And when you're doing it from the client side, man in the middle attack is again possible. The reason is uh, one can hit and try. This key is available on the client side on your browser, either in the cookies or in your objects, wherever you're storing it. While doing the encryption, one can just trace it easily and then tap your network and can try to decrypt your data. So again, it's not that secure, but yes, it is again a methodology which usually people use. Now, how to do that in Power Portals? We have a concept called implicit grant flow. Usually people don't know, or I don't see any blogs around it. I don't know why, but this is a very core concept what we use for doing encryptions in portals or interacting with external sites. Let's say I want to interact with the Azure application directly from my app, or I want to call a Power Automate flow. I want to interact with external API or anything, whatever I want to do. How I can guarantee that it's me who is doing. Let's say I want to just encrypt my data. So in order to do that, we have two mechanisms available. One, either I can have a middleware which will understand that the request is coming from the right person, and then it will pass on the data. Otherwise, I can have a middleware available which will going to perform this activity for me. Both the mechanisms requires federation. How that particular person will know that this is coming from a right source or somebody is trying to hack my system. In order to do that, what we usually do, let's say let me just quickly show you that. So here we have couple of settings available in portal site in order to do that. And let me show you quickly. We have only 9 minutes. So in the site settings, if you'll see, So these three properties I have already created to save time. So as you can see, first property is talking about what is the client ID. I just wanted to provide the client ID. Client ID is basically your AAD ID. On the server side, Power Portal will going to generate a token for you to authenticate the user. So in that case, and this is all happening from the client side, and it's very secured. So what you can do, you can directly provide the client ID of that particular web app. Like this is my client ID for my web app, which is associated to my portal. I can have its expiration time usually, and this should go in a seconds format, so 120 seconds this is. And in the cybersecurity world, usually 2 minutes is acceptable time for as a benchmark. We use that 2 minutes is a secured time. Beyond 2 minutes, it's not secured. So we can enable it for 2 minutes. This is the expiration time of my token, whatever I'm generating, and this is the redirect URL. So when I generate the token, where the page should go. So this is what I'm specifying. And now let me just enable the settings quickly. All right. So these settings are enabled now. So if I'll go back to my portal here, and I'll show you what is the format of generating that particular token. Okay, here it is. So as you can see, I'm just using the base URL _service_auth_authorize, then client ID as a query fragment, and then redirect URL as a query fragment. I just need to provide these details. Let me paste it here. Oh, I forgot to clear the cache. So as you can see now, in the response, what I get here, in the response, I get a security token available. So this is my token. This is my token, and which is valid for 120 seconds. Now I can use this token to authenticate whatever I want. Whatever is attached with my AAD on the server side where the client ID exists, right? This AAD is attached with your Power Automate. It can attach with your Azure function. It can attach with anything, whatever you want, and that particular thing will easily be able to federate. Let's say you want to call a Power Automate and from your portal side, client side. You cannot have HTTP request directly. What you can do, you can generate this token, pass the token as a parameter in your HTTP request, and then pass this parameter in your HTTP request, and then that's it. You can write a small custom connector which will going to validate that this token is valid, and then it's done. You are able to validate the response. Yeah.
Ratnesh, there are 5 minutes to close the session. There
Yeah.
are a few more questions as well.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, I'm done with the slides now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would be the best approach to show or hide fields on entity forms based on web roles?
Okay. So what type of content you're trying to show based on web roles? If you're doing it based on web roles, yeah, that's liquid conditioning is the only approach right now we have. But the reason why I'm not saying to use it in case of you are checking that user is logged in or not. If it user is logged in, then only load the page. Otherwise, redirect user to login page. These type of conditioning, please do not use it, because users can easily trap that and can breach it easily. They can block the login process and be able to access your data. So don't use that at least. Otherwise, role-based model, there is only one approach. You can just get the role of the logged in user, capture it into an object, and then do the comparison. That's the only way.
Okay. So next question, right? Can you give about license for Power Apps portal? Jay Gopal was asking. Yeah.
Yes. So for license, no, users does not require any license. Basically, we have, based on the plan what you're using, we have like 20,000 users can log in for a month, or how many users can log in using a contact. That kind of monitoring Microsoft does. Otherwise, there is no licensing required, because as I mentioned, system user is basically stamped in the background who will going to perform the CDS operations.
Okay, and there is a question from my side. So what is the maximum limit that we can show the records in an entity list?
There is no as such limit exactly, because usually it's up to you. In the entity list, there is no limit. I haven't actually seen that what is the limit exactly, but we can just quickly see here, right? I can say like 200, right? So what is the length of this particular field? That's the limit, and platform doesn't restrict, but it's not good practice actually. The minimum, the size of the page, it will take less amount of time to render as well.
Right. So do you suggest paging if the content is more, and
Yes.
on the load, what do you suggest?
Well, pagination is always the best approach because it will take less time to render the content, and always don't use a lot of entity lists in the same page, because again it will going to do another retrieve operation. Basically in the background, entity list is doing the retrieve operation from the CDS. So the more retrieve conditions you will add, it will take more time to render, right?
Yeah.
And more data you're going to show to the end user by using more page size, it will again going to take more time, because DOM components are generating dynamically, as I have shown in the dynamic generation properties, right? It's all doing in the background. I'm just exploring how we can do it again custom way, but this entire thing is doing dynamically in the background. So if you will think like this entire thing will going to happen is for each loop is rendering on the background. So the more data, the more time.
Yeah, got you. Thank you.
So I guess we are approaching the end of this session. So yes, so yeah, go ahead, Ratnesh, if you have
Thank you,
anything.
everyone. Thank you, everyone, for scheduling this session. I can see that I'm part of this session from day one, and I see that you all are so energetic. I don't know from where you get this much energy. You guys are just, be on the call. It's so much knowledge. All the experts are just sharing their knowledge. So good. We should have more frequent these things, but not good for you guys, I guess. But yeah, it's really good sessions. Thank you.
Yeah, so I must say the particular word "wow" is for you, Susan. So it's like we are, it's like we have learned so many things from this particular 1 hour of the Power Portals of Susan. So people are already asking for your recordings of your session and other things. So we will surely put it on our YouTube channel very soon once we fix everything. So at the end, I would like to thank everyone for joining. We really appreciate your presence. We hope that you are taking away some powerful learnings from this session. Thanks, Ratnesh, for an amazing session on Power Portals, liquid coding, encryption, and security, and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.